Well, nobody here yet. Hello? Hello, Claire. How are you? You've been so busy working on your new place. I don't know who else is in here. Okay. I wanted to talk a bit about various oh, well, you have to take a break once in a while, Claire. You've been very busy. I'm good. I'm good. I had a good report from my doctor. I'm not taking anti-inflammatories anymore before bed, so that's a good thing. And so I don't have to take an acid reducer with it, so that's a good thing. And of course, I'm off the tramadol from 2 years ago. I got off of that a year and a half ago. And my blood pressure looks pretty good. And so we're good. Pretty good for an old girl. um, I wanted to talk about Mandela Effect and memories. Now, we all know, those of us who are affected, that we're really sure about some memories, that there's no doubt. But sometimes, I have trouble when I look back as to whether or not I learned about something after I was affected and didn't realize that it was an effect. Because I read a lot, I watch documentaries, and I've always done this all through the years. And so, in this sense, it's something that I've always done. So I have to think, like with the Boer War or how long a river is or something. Although I always get the Mississippi and the Missouri mixed up anyway. So if I answer wrong there, that explains that, because I've always gotten them mixed up. Not from that area, and I don't think about it much. So we were talking about the Boer War the other day, and I'm thinking, I know about that. I know about that. Well, maybe, you're not affected because you remember something. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think so far as memories from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s, that more than likely we shifted before the mid 80s or around the mid 80s. At least I think I did, maybe earlier. And so anything that I learned after that, if it was something historical, whatever, could very well be a Mandela effect that I just thought I was ignorant or uneducated. So, but the current changes that we see, some of them I see, some of them I remember. So I was like, okay, so what does this mean? It means we are from different timelines. It also means that may have learned something in the interim between the time we discovered we were affected, and the time we actually were affected. So there's no consistency, especially with me, with how much I read and study. I'm always very impressed with MA, who seems to, well, his experience was very dramatic, though. He just woke up and everything was different. So it's not like it snuck up on him. His was so traumatic, he thought he was actually mental. People thought he was mental. His partner thought he was mental, and he wasn't. But his Mandela Effect journey was very, very, very dramatic and traumatic. He gets up and he goes to the church, and it's different. He goes here, that's different. Everything's different. I mean, dramatically different. Buildings don't look right. I mean, it must have been like waking up in an alien planet for him to some degree, and it was. Some of us don't have that dramatic of an experience. And why, I couldn't tell you. I don't know why. But I know that some people think we're quantum jumping. Some people think we're traveling through timelines. I think that we're going into different timelines personally, because that explains the Earth changes and historical changes. Because I can't think that it's just maybe that's what quantum shifting is going into another timeline. So I can tell you this, though, if I go on the rare occasion I go through albums, picture albums, I see things that I've made for people as gifts, and I very crafty. I knit, crochet, all kinds of stuff. So I'm a very good seamstress, and I don't remember making them. And when I first came across this, that I don't remember making them, I thought, wow, what happened to my memory? Am I like, going a little gaga or something, And I have since then realized what happened. That the me from the timeline that I'm existing in at the moment, the one that was here before I got here, before my consciousness got to this timeline, had done things, had made choices that were a little different. I'm very prone to making things for people if I have the strength. I love giving gifts to people. I'm a generous person. I love making things for people. I love cooking for people, sewing for people. I mean, I just do. I love doing these things for people that I care about. And so I'm trying to think, well, I'm looking back and I'm going, wait a minute. Now that I know what I know about what's going on, at least to some extent with this ME stuff, that I understand the bizarreness of this journey, I can say I know now why I don't remember making them. I mean, they look totally foreign to me. It's like, you think that seeing something and, seeing when I made it and stuff would jar a memory. I mean, I don't think anybody has that bad of a memory unless they have dementia, which I do not. None of that in my family, and I certainly do not have that. And so, that's kind of bizarre. And my phone keeps on turning off. And let's see. Anyway, my cat, who is very prone to getting up on top of things, I gotta tell somebody I'm streaming. Anyway, back when I thought the world was the world and made sense, that's been a while. I'm pretty sure the shifting was going on in the 70s, early 80s, or earlier, because I remember my first marriage. We were driving by a place, and I said, well, that's, it was First Street. I said, well, we used to live in an apartment over there. And he says, no, we didn't. And I thought he was losing his mind. And this was like 78. Now, and his personality had changed before that markedly. His personality completely changed. His behavior changed, became really strange person that I didn't. I thought I thought, what's going on with this? He gone nuts on me or something? And so I'm thinking if that was an ME, him not remembering where we used to live and me remembering where we used to live, that was around 78. Okay, so what have I watched and learned through books and college and um, documentaries in the interim between then and now? I've learned a lot of things that probably were MEs, that I just thought I was not educated, that I was ignorant, but were actually things that did not exist before my shifting. So I would counsel you not to jump to conclusion that someone's not affected because they give the current timeline answers. Because it could be they shifted a long time ago and they've learned in the meantime these things and they didn't realize they were MEs because they didn't know. Some people have shifted more recently. And so it's a lot more jarring and obvious, you know. And I'm thinking, like some of the birds that Cupie shows are, I remember some of them, but then I have to think about when did I remember them? When did I remember seeing them? And it's almost always within the last 5 years or so that I remember seeing this particular animal. And it's not all of them, just maybe one here or there. So it's a, be careful about judging people precipitously, I guess. Let me show you something. This is something that, now, Pikachu had a black end to his tail. Pokemon were a huge thing in my family with my youngest two boys. Well, huge, absolutely huge. They used to play it on their little Game Boy, I guess. They used to watch it on TV, the show, cartoon, all the time. I knew them. I knew we had a chart. I think we still have it. I think my son Benjamin has it. That he had hearing loss for a period of time because of infections, and so they had put tubes in his ears, clean out his ear, and he had to take speech therapy because he was hearing things garbled and he couldn't speak clearly. So I gave the speech therapist the Pokemon poster. And these words, the Pokemon names are quite complicated. I don't know if they're some of them are pretty interesting words, but they entail a lot of vowels, consonants, and diphthongs and stuff. So it's really good for speech. And he knew them, so she said he learned them, and he didn't need her help out. She said she'd never seen anyone learn and get over their speech problem as quickly as he did. Of course, my kids are brilliant. What can I say? Anyway, so I knew Pokemon, okay, and it had a black end to his tail. I mean, and they had sheets that had Pokemon on them. I mean, come on, this, and I found a picture that had been drawn of Pikachu. And I thought maybe my daughter had drawn it because she's quite artistic. And I think, wait a minute, she was really too young to be this good at it. And I used to draw Snoopy and all kinds of cartoon characters. I used to draw cartoon characters in kindergarten, and I was good at it. I have artistic ability. I don't really develop it very horribly well, which is something maybe I'll do when I'm old. And I'm looking at this. I'm going. I posted in the family hangouts. Did anybody remember who did this? No. And it's like, apparently I did. It's a little, gotten wet, but, and I don't know what that red on under his arm and on his back and on his bottom part is. I don't know what that is. That he didn't have that. And it's like, the handwriting isn't mine. I mean, the stickers are probably Benjamin's. They put on there. It has the fairy godparents and candy and Halloween stuff, a Halloween cat. I don't remember doing this. Hey, Carla, I do not remember drawing this. And I'm the only one who could have. So add this to the things that I've done that I don't remember doing. So when you look through old albums and stuff, it's a little scary because I find all these things that I did that I don't remember doing, and it's like, I know I'm not crazy. Hi, JoJo's. And it's like, how very strange. How very strange. Yeah, I think we've been shifting for a long time, Claire, and I think that's why I know things that are current timeline. Not to mention the fact that I have a family, I have to kind of know what's happening, you know what I mean? Oh, Joanna, that's cute, JoJo. I don't know if you've ever watched anime, but there's a character called JoJo, and I was like, JoJo. Anyway, so I think, if I know that I must have been shifting mid 70s. I got married in 76, my first husband. It's your real nickname? Oh, that's cute. I used to be called Rissa by my brother because he couldn't say my name. Anyway, so if we were shifting since the 70s, at least some of us aware of it, yeah, there's going to be things that I have learned throughout all those years that some of you will say, oh, that's current timeline. You must not be shifting. It's like, well, no, not really. It's just that some of us shifted way back and we just thought we were ignorant and sort of absorbed the timelines as we came through as, okay, this is the way it is. I must have been mistaken. You almost always think you're the one you're the one who's wrong. You always think you're the one that's misremembering, that you're the one who's like, losing their mind or distracted or whatever. When the reality was you were shifting. And anyone else getting flooding of old memories and wonder why? Yeah, some of those do that. Yeah. And I think, with my cat knocking off stuff and I'm finding things in my room that I had forgotten. And it's like this picture of Pikachu with the wrong tail that I apparently drew, whoever was here before me, was with some of my things my son Benjamin had done as a little kid. So I know that's associated with that. So so from now on, I'm going to try to think. Yeah, I'm trying to think whenever I see something, do I remember that from after the 70s? Or is it something I remember when I was in high school? High school, I may have been, well, high school, I graduated in 73, so I don't know. I really couldn't tell you, but I think because my other husband, my ex-husband changed around 78, really personality change, that was a big shift. He became a strange person, was getting into drugs and all. I mean, really out of character. And it's like, I couldn't for the life of me. Around 77, he just got weird on me. Really strange. And so I have to think back, and it's hard to sort it. And you have to hold on to your affected memories tightly because it's so easy to have dual memories. Um, yeah, you see, that's what MA said. MA says that if you draw something from a picture of something that changes, the drawing you did will change too. Okay? That's something he's reiterated over and over. You have to find some other way. You have to have some other way to document something that isn't easy for the Mandela effect changes to affect. So a picture drawn from another picture, if that other picture changes, it will change too. Like he said, if you cut a piece of a picture out, like if you had a picture of something that changes and cut a little swatch out of it and glued it in a book somewhere, or like a journal, that if that part of the picture changed color, that little swatch of paper that you cut off the picture will change also. If you draw something from memory, it won't change. If you draw something from looking at something and copying it, it will change if it's affected. So that tells me that our memories have power, and that when we do anything from memory, it endures. Okay? Yeah. We had somebody that left the group because he thought he wasn't affected because someone he talked to didn't agree with him on something. And you eventually have to have faith in what you're experiencing. And I hope he comes back. I hope he realizes that, yeah, I'm pretty sure he was affected. And it's like, but you have to come to terms with this yourself. It took me a year to really adjust to it. And it's still challenging to wrap my head around it. I don't know if I really don't know. And I'm one of those people who wanted to learn everything, but unlike MA, who had this big, huge shift from one timeline to another, where the next day everything was dramatically different, like in those movies where people wake up in an alternate reality and they think they're crazy. That's what happened to him. Most of us, it was a little more subtle. And because so much was going on in my life emotionally, I think that I wasn't able to differentiate and pay attention to some things. So I think that so far as the ME is concerned, a lot of us, we just have to start on a new page and start paying attention from this point on to anything that we see. 2012. Okay. 2012. It was after that I met my elderly lady who helped me a lot. She was wonderful. She was 95 when she passed. But that's when a lot of choices I made were very, I changed my life. I really decided to go back to school. A lot of personal changes, personal transformation went on after 2012. But there was this nagging feeling of something off. And I really I couldn't tell you what it was. I Greek Mary. What you cooking? But I mean, The ME, I think, I don't know if it's trying to teach us something, if we're collecting shards of our soul as we travel along timelines, could we complete the fragmentation of our spirit that's been scattered, our consciousness that maybe has been scattered over many timelines, that we're gathering them together, and that when we shift, we leave an NPC behind us. I don't know. I don't know. Anybody who thinks they know, I'm just like, well, that must be nice to be so sure of yourself. Uh, well, good for you. Steamed veggies. We stir fry, we steam them. Yeah. Uh, anyway, so what we do from this point on is, I think, the only thing that we can concentrate on. Although looking into the timeline changes and the big events that happen that we don't remember is important too. If they're important because they're going to affect how the world treats you. Um, Plus, they're interesting. I was reading some Irish folk tales, and these are like from 1880s, 1890s. As someone went around and talked to people throughout Ireland about their folk tales, their beliefs, and I don't know. But these Irish folk tales, yeah, there's a lot of about not remembering things much from the 80s. I can honestly tell you there's a lot I don't remember between 2000s and the 90s. There's not a lot I remember in there. There's a lot of fuzzy, 80s to 90s to, late 80s to early 2000s, just like really fuzzy. Don't remember much. And that's ridiculous, Yeah, okay, but about the Irish folktales. Now they were great believers in witchcraft, and they believed that a witch would turn themselves into a giant rabbit, a big rabbit, and go and drink the milk of the neighbor's cows, be full of this huge amount of milk, head back home, and I guess regurgitate it and then sell it themselves. And the whole idea, just like, and this was considered they always accuse someone of witchcraft if their animals started feeling poorly or not producing. And there was one story about this young man who wouldn't go to church. He would go out chasing rabbits, and they found a big brown rabbit. I don't know about you, but most rabbits in the wild are sort of gray. They're not brown. This is a brown rabbit. And they call these big female brown rabbit a puss, okay? And he goes after them with a staff that's bigger on one end and smaller at the other, and it's called a cockstick. And I just thought, really? Really? And they'd throw it and kill the rabbit, I guess. And he ended up not coming home, since friends go home, and he ends up, freezing to death because a storm hit, and it's like a cautionary tale. But it's like, I don't remember female rabbits being called a puss, for one thing, and I've never heard of a cockstick either, and I think that was very Freudian. But I mean, this is like indicating, this. We've noticed that these recent timelines are a lot of innuendo and sexual references, and it's a little disgusting. It's disgusting. I didn't expect to see that. It could be our current timeline definitions for those words. But then I think, well, maybe, no, I didn't look up a pic for cockstick. It's COCK-stick. Yeah, I might have the courage to do that sometime. But I talked to people in the UK, and they'd never heard of it before. I didn't talk to anyone Irish yet, but it's like, you'd think someone who's Irish, if someone's Irish and they're affected, and they don't remember that, I would say that's an ME. Okay. That's why I love to read legends and myths and stuff, because I think there's a lot of MEs in them, and I think I'm right. I think I'm right. And it's interesting because a lot of these things are becoming manifested in our world in the animals we see that are very bizarre looking. They're like resemble mythical creatures rather than the ones we recognize from our own past. I know Kewpie's found all kinds of bizarre animals, and I'll do a video of those when I have a number of them. But she's always finding stuff, and which refers to an individual who is rude or inconsiderate at the expense of others, often without regard. Now this is an actual staff, a big long stick that's got, I guess, a bigger on one end than the other, and it's like, and it's COCK stick. Yeah, I mean, now colloquialisms of Ireland back then, but you'd think there'd be some residual of that, right? So it could be, it could be very much, an ME, because it's like, I just need to find an Irishman and say, hey, do you remember, this shouldn't have disappeared. I thought it was cold conked. CONCK, like hit the head. Cold cocked. Well, we're getting a little risque here. I don't know. I don't know. It's bizarre. And I can't tell you exactly what's going on. I wish I could. Conch stick. I just know when I saw that in this Tales of Irish Folklore, I'm just like going, WTF. And, I've read Irish folklore before, and I'd never heard of this. And why would you, like want to go out and beating rabbits on a Sunday morning? And it's like, poor things. Oh, because they're witches, right? Witchcraft was a huge thing in this folklore. It's like, yeah, it's like I don't understand it. But on a happier note, I'll keep reading those, but I'm also reading a lot about cryptids and stuff. And the cryptids thing about animals, creatures that were totally in the area of mythos are being seen. It's kind of like, the dogmen and stuff like that, the rougarou and other creatures that are seen often by credible people. And it's like, this is scary if we're creating this. You're not finding anything even in Irish lore. See, that's what I mean. I think it's an ME. I think it's, I'm looking at this, I'm just going, what? Anyway, I've been, as you know, working on doing the narration for that book, for this book that Sunny 3 had brought up that had lots of MEs in it, which it does. It does. And I'll be also narrating the second book, but I'm gonna do some ME videos too. I had a lot of doctor's appointments and errands and stuff this last week or so, so I didn't get done. The thinning of the veil, scriptures and stuff, and New Age people and mystics and all kinds of people. New Age just to define an era, not as a put down. Okay, the 70s, 80s, 90s. Hey, Voynich. or Voynich, whatever way you say it. Thinning of the veil. I think we're seeing this. And I think that timelines might intersect times. I think dimensions might intersect at times. Walking down by running water, you can find weird things like wavy places and air or surroundings. I always avoid these places. Yeah, you don't want. I think that a lot of these disappearances in the parks are due to people stepping into an alternate dimension or reality. There was one story of a woman who talked about how she was behind people and she got stepped somewhere and was in a different place and nobody was there. And she looked everywhere and she kind of had some kind of inclination as to where to go. And she ended up being able to get back. And she says, I got to a place where nobody I knew was there. And there was some weird kind of energy that kept creeping after her. And she felt very endangered. And, but she was one of the few that was able to get back. But I think a lot of these disappearances, they're permanently lost. Excuse me. That was loud. But hey, it's Scott's in the house. But I mean these weird things that happen. I think that as the spiritual people keep saying they were going up to a higher level, to 5D, for we're getting out of 3D, going up to a higher dimension. That going through these dimensions may not be a completely straightforward process. And it might be like if you see something weird, like the shimmering near water, water conducts a lot of energy. A lot of hauntings happen when there's underground water or crystal, things like that. And it makes you think, well, is this reality very solid? And I don't think it is. I think that, like Creek says, people are manifesting negative stuff. I mean, how many of us would want to manifest some of these things going on? I know I wouldn't. But, I think there is the good versus evil thing, that the good people are trying to manifest good things, the evil are the other, and that there are two different common consciousnesses, at least. There's the ones that want to change the world for themselves, for their own gain, and those that want peace and harmony. Well, Scott, I miss watching you play Sims. That was fun, especially when you got pregnant by an alien. That was special. Yeah, cognitive dissonance. That's when people will refuse to see truth, even if it's right in front of their face. And I think some people who are affected even have that because they just don't want their world tipped upside down. They don't. But I was showing. I got to show this to Scott. Apparently, I drew this in this timeline and don't remember doing it, and the tail is wrong because we were all into Pikachu. I knew exactly what Pikachu looked like, and I don't know what this red stuff is here. I have no idea. And this handwriting is not mine. It's like, but I'm the only one who could have done it. At least, whatever this body is. And I was talking about all the crochets and knitting and things I made for people that I don't remember making that I find pictures for. Yeah, another me drew it and unaffected me up. I don't remember doing it. It's like, yikes. Yeah, it's a little. I don't have a whole lot of physical uh, examples. Yeah, but I would have remembered drawing it. That's a thing. But yeah, if it's drawn from a picture, it would change. Of course it would. So, but in this timeline, Pikachu doesn't have a black end to his tail. However, if it changed to having a black end of his tail, that picture might change. So that might be an indicator for me. So I'm keeping it around. I don't know. I don't know if if I'm collecting the fragments of my consciousness, that the ones that I leave an NPC that just goes through the motions and does, has a basic personality and does the usual things that people aren't affected do. And they may be perfectly okay people, you know. I don't know. No idea. So when you think about it, look back and try to figure out when you started shifting. And I think you'll be surprised how far back it goes for a lot of you. Some of you, like JoJo and MA, was more dramatic. But some of us, it's like what's happening a while. I'm pretty sure by, 78 that things were changing in my world. Hi, First Munch. How are you? I don't know. I mean, how many of us are there? Millions? Or is there only this consciousness? Is this the only place I am? Or is my consciousness spread out and I'm in all those places? Maybe, or some of them. Is this why we have dual memories sometimes? Is that I have dreams where I am in a different reality, still married to my first husband, or married to someone else, and the situation is different and it's very real. It's not like some fantasy dream, it's like real. And I'm thinking, what did I just dream? Is that me connecting to another me? Because the thing is that, you know, if we say the 70s was when things started to really get wonky, it could be clear back to when we bombed Japan. Because there was beliefs in the 60s and 70s that the bombing in Japan fractured our timelines, that it fractured things so badly that it messed up everything and enabled the evil to have more power. And that's why they did it, so they could have, that the evil could have more power here. Interesting. Yeah, Nagasaki and Hiroshima. That somehow those fractured the timelines. Now, we have things that happen that look so fake. And you just like, so it's like, when I was a child, but for years I put it down to things changing with time, updated it, sort of me getting it wrong. Yeah, it's like, that's what I mean. It's like, I think back to my childhood. And I would say 1969, everything just changed for me. My brother got cancer, my stepfather died, um, all this traumatic stuff. And I don't know. I mean, it could be the shifting affects individuals since birth, that there's something about our consciousness somehow not integrating with where we are for whatever reason, whether it's DNA or energy or past life. I don't know. Yeah, the Nazis, I don't know if it's an ME that they were super into supernatural stuff, but I know that since the 80s, we knew they were. Okay. Raiders of the Lost Ark, they're into the weird woo-woo stuff. But, how much before that were they? Were they ever before that? I don't know. The Voynich book, they finally concluded that it was a book of herbal remedies for women, and that they've translated most of it. That it was written cryptically because of um, the allusion to witchcraft, that they had to hide their information. I know there's a plant apparently that was super duper amazing, wonderful plant that you could use for eating it and all kinds of things, that was in Rome, in Italy, that is now extinct. And they talk about it, as being what, I don't know about you, but it's kind of hard to make a plant extinct. That it's not easy to do that because they reproduce by seeds and whatnot. But I wouldn't be surprised if that comes back and they find it, just like the Tasmanian devil's been seen. And trust me, there's been video. The night cameras have caught it, and it's obviously from there's no other animal that has the hind end like that, where the tail goes down that way and the legs are hinged the way it is. That's what it is. Tasmanian devil. They're not gone, not anymore. So pretty soon they'll have definitive proof. You know that. Yeah. Yeah, there's still a lot of mystery with the Voynich manuscript. They like to, scientists don't like a mystery. They like to have some kind of explanation, even if it's the wrong one. They'd rather have some explanation than just, say, we don't know. We're not talking Warner Brothers, Scott. Yeah, so I expect a lot of hidden knowledge to be brought out finally, through this, as we travel, that more things that's going to be affected people finding this stuff, because it'll be affected people that say, I remember hearing about this, and I want to see if I can find it. Um, the but like the Tasmanian devil, they'll catch a picture of it, daytime picture of it sometime. Well, uh, the Tasmanian tiger is what I'm talking about, not the devil. Tasmanian tiger. Yeah, Tasmanian devil looks like the Tasmanian, but Tasmanian tiger. My bad. That's what I meant to talk about. The Tasmanian tiger has been caught on night cameras, and it's not really a tiger. It looks like a dog. It looks like a canid, but it's not that either. It's very unique. So I meant Tasmanian tiger. I don't like to call it a tiger because it looks more like that. It's the Tasmanian devil is a short little pudgy animal. This is like a dog-like. And I have yet to figure out how they managed to create this animal to extinction. It's like were people eating it or shooting it because it was killing their sheep? I mean, it's like a lot of things seem to go extinct these days, and then new ones come popping up. So it's like, I'm not sure. The numbers of tiger species is amazing, lion species. I mean, it's like crazy. So, Tasmanian tiger. And I forget the scientific name for it. But they talk about it on one of the cryptid sites I go to on Facebook. Yeah, we're trying to kill ourselves off, aren't we? Oh, and they're getting more and more pictures of lake monsters now. Every lake has a monster now that's seen, photographed, seen by multiple credible people. And it's like just going, really? Really? Like, wow. Yeah, I remember Tasmania not being where it is now. I also remember um, another another larger mass to the west as well. And it's like, love you guys. Thank you, Ornage. um, so, I mean, trying to get a handle on what you're experiencing isn't easy. Uh, hey, Lone Oak Lady, welcome to the crazy room. I'll show you the picture of Pikachu that I drew in this timeline with the wrong tail that I don't remember drawing. Pikachu. Oh, and you have people in the family saying, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, I'm fine. I'm not, really, I'm not. I'm not crazy." We're having a big fire in the northwest of the state. And the winds have just kicked up last night, and it's not helping. Not helping at all. So next week, um, I have a surprise. I'm dressing up I'm going to do it on Halloween, either that or right before. No, I'm not. I'm in the city. I'm in Sacramento. We don't have like forest fires here. We do get the smoke though, which is just lovely. And but I don't live, people that have money live where these fires are, um, where they have beautiful trees around them and everything, and it's just it's devastating for them. They lose their homes. They're evacuated. They're all evacuated, so they have to leave everything. And it's we have so much fires now. It's just really ridiculous because I don't remember us ever having until about 5 or so years ago, having these fires so bad, so many of them, so huge, so devastating every year. I don't remember that at all. I don't know if climate change is so much climate change as it is shifting. I don't know. I don't know. I know we need to reduce pollution. We should have stop being dependent on oil for a lot of reasons, not the least of pollution, but for other reasons as well, and have some renewable energy kind of thing going on. That would be much smarter, or at least get better mileage, which I know the gas companies, if anybody gets an invention that makes it so we save a lot of money on gas, they buy it up and put it away where we can't use it. So it's like the electric car that disappeared and out of nowhere. It just came up and then it was not there anymore. It was very, very strange. What does innocent mean? What do you mean, Voynich? Skookum? Skookum is, you see, my grandfather, who was the herd from the front and the bicycle built for 10 in New York, was a young man. He's a machinist. He came west because he wanted to be a cowboy. He was born in 1882. He came and lived in Washington State. And my recollection is that he used to take people on pack camping trails into the hills, and he'd have native guides, Native American guides with him. And he learned some of the Chinook trade language in the process. And Skookum means strong, courageous, that kind of thing. Big, strong, courageous. Native American. And my grandfather had named a horse that. I named my kitty cat that when I first got online in 98, I guess it was, and I was to pick a name. I used Skookum because it was something that was involved in my family. And so, yeah, he was a trail master, and his name, the name they gave him was Sundown. And I think I know why they called him Sundown, because he wouldn't stop and pitch camp until sundown. So that's what they called him. So that's why. And I was born in Yakima, which is near the Columbia River in Washington. So my roots are along the Columbia River. My great-grandmother had dealings with the Yakima Indians, or the Klickitat Indians. I think it was the Klickitat. She would doctor them because she knew herbal remedies and stuff, my great-grandmother. And apparently their medicine person probably died. They got a lot of disease from the white people, and it decimated most of the tribes in America tremendously. And so they would go to her if they got sick or anything like that. They loved my great-grandmother. They considered her family, and they really loved my mom because my mom was being raised by my grandmother. They would name, my great-grandmother's name was Isadora, and my mother's name was Dorothy. So they would name their children after my great-grandmother and my mother, which is the nicest thing, most honorable thing they can do to honor someone, is to name someone after you. And one year, the bears now there's lots of ice caves up in that part of the country, Oregon, Washington, and the bears got into the native people's food cache, and had, bears or pigs, they probably ate it all. And so they didn't have they needed some food. And there weren't very many of these natives left, probably. But I mean, they didn't have enough food. And so three of the ladies, or, the white people called them squaws, which I think is a horrible thing to call them, came to my great-grandmother. One of them was an old woman, and she didn't speak. The two younger ones did. And of course, everyone knew what had happened, that they'd lost their food cache. So she gave them a bunch of canned things. Now, back then, if they canned meat, they'd have to, hi Bubbles, they canned meat, they'd have to boil it for like 8 hours in the jars. Nowadays, we can process with a pressure cooker. for less time. But back then, they'd have to boil the salmon or the venison, canned salmon or venison, for a very long time to make sure there wouldn't be any salmonella or anything else that could kill you. Um, and so they came, and she gave them a bunch of canned salmon, a bunch of canned probably vegetables, probably canned venison, dried meat. She was a pioneer woman. She knew how to do all this stuff, canning and drying and smoking and everything else. And she knew herbal medicine as well. She said there's no excuse for ignorance as long as there's libraries. She was a great believer in self-education. And she was one tough mother, let's put it that way. And my mother just adored her. They were just two of a kind, really. Anyway, so she sends them home with she feeds them first, feeds them a meal. She said the understanding was that the old lady would not eat eggs because they're sacred. They were sacred to her. She wouldn't eat the chicken eggs, which I didn't know that was a thing for some natives. Maybe the previous generation that time wouldn't eat eggs. She wouldn't eat eggs. So that was something I haven't investigated yet. So here she sends them home with some food, and which was typical of people those days. They'd help each other. They didn't care if you were native or not. I think the enmity that history paints between white people and the natives is exaggerated. I think on a personal level, many of them helped each other. But we only hear of the bad stuff, unfortunately. So, they don't want us to think about, well, people could live in harmony in some places without a problem. Well, anyway, back to the story. Come springtime, several of the braves, they call the young men, come with huge handfuls of salmon from my great-grandmother. And guess what she probably did? She probably dried some of it, canned some of it, ate some of it. But that's, they always paid back their debts. There was always an exchange. You help me, I help you. Always. It was never just take, or give. It was always reciprocal. They would find some way to reciprocate, to keep the energies fair, keep the sharing fair. So it was like kind of strange that, all you hear is bad stuff about how people got along. And yet, I think, for the most part, in pioneer situations, people worked together if they could. If they could. Dehydrating grapes. Aren't those raisins? Grape nuggets. I have a dryer, and I remember, I'm not anti-gun. I'm not anti-hunting. I think there's a place and a time. My dad was a gunsmith, and he was a sharpshooter and everything else. Used to hunt, and he brought over a big thing of old venison roast that had some freezer burn on it. And he says, I cut the freezer burn part off of it and made jerky out of it because my brother had made this huge dryer with this big fan and heating element. My brother never did anything small. He made this big thing. It was like 3 by 3 by 3. It was huge. And I dried the jerky in there, and I got like 3 quarts of jerky. And then I also made my dad venison stew. My mom, even though she was divorced from him, and her husband was dead, her second husband was dead, he and his common law wife were always invited over for every holiday. I mean, my mother was so broad-minded. It's like unbelievable. Oh, you're making this. That jerky was like gone. That was the best jerky ever. Best jerky ever. I'm a country girl. I think you found out. You can take the girl out of the country, but yeah, I'm a country girl. I didn't leave the country till I was 8, so it's pretty much. Plus, my parents were always country people, so yeah. And I remember time my aunt, she was like 80 years old, up and she's waiting by the car. She has her deer tags, waiting by the truck, and here comes a buck, and she just shoots it from the vehicle she's standing next to, and gets her tag. He would go her husband would go grouse hunting and pheasant hunting, and she'd raise turkeys and chickens, and they'd get their deer meat, and that was their meat for the year. That was what they ate for the year. They might get some beef from someone else as well, but I mean, so there you go. So there's what's worrying to me is the tuberculosis and stuff that the deer are getting, and the other wasting disease that they're getting. This is worrying to me, very worrying to me. And the diseases animals can pass on to humans is an ME for me. That never used to happen until like 10 years ago. Very worrying. I would like that to stop. I proclaim it will stop. No more of that, please. No more of that. So, now hunters have to be careful, Maybe they have to wear gloves when they, butcher out an animal. I don't know. I don't know. No idea. Well, anyway, that was fun. Manifested. Yes. Healthy game. No more sick animals. That would be nice. So I'm probably going to do another one of the Cosmic Dance. The next chapter, the last one was Gateways, which was interesting, to say the least. And the next one's called The Mind of God. I haven't read it yet. But it starts out, you are still sons and daughters of the universe. Yes, we are. And you each have your own particular rhythm, your note, and can attune yourself to the universal song. It talks about our song, our note, the music that we emit. And I haven't gotten a handle on that quite yet, but it kind of makes sense that each of us has our own song, and that we, if we work at it, can sound harmonious with each other. So keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep learning. And so I say goodbye. Have a good day. And I'll see you next week on Halloween. And you can laugh at me when you see me. And we'll tell some scary stories. How's that sound? I don't know if I've had bison. I might have had some of that. I don't know, Jojo. I don't know. I personally think that if you don't believe it's going to bother you or hurt you, it won't. Because I think here, our reality is, we have this placebo effect so powerful here. Bison are real lean, aren't they? They don't have a lot of fat, except like on their shoulders, I think. You just see my double chin if I shine it under my face. Well, I'm glad that the bison are back and that they aren't extinct, because I tell you, the white man did a good job of trying, didn't he? It was ridiculous. They used the hide for the belts. Moose, I don't know. Moose are like, they look like a really stubborn animal. I mean, I'm just saying. Just saying. Yeah, so lean it'll burn before it'll sort of cook because there's not enough fat in it. Or you have to add fat to the pan or add fat to the, yeah, yeah. Well, you guys all have a nice day, okay? And you're making me hungry. I haven't had anything like that in so long. I don't eat hardly any meat anymore. So I'll have chicken. Fish, I like fish, you know. Uh, you know, you're from northern Montana? Oh my gosh, you're kidding. Before I say goodbye, I gotta say this to Jojo. My grandfather, along with my great grandmother and my mom, I guess they all went to Montana to the reservation there, to the Blackfoot Reservation to run their sheep. That he had permission to graze his sheep there. That my mom used to sit with the ladies, they'd sit in a circle and they'd sing a little song around the fire and they would pass a bone around. And I guess you had to guess who had it, I guess. Oh my gosh. And my mother said that the ladies all smelled, they wore buckskin, they all smelled like smoke, like fireplace smoke. Oh my gosh. Oh, so we have a connection. It's sort of a tenuous one, Joanna, but we do. And they loved my mother and my great grandmother, the Blackfoot did. They loved her. Yeah, they smell like smoke. But apparently they loved my mom Dorothy and Isadora. They named their kids after them too. I mean, it's like they'd gone. I guess they used to. This was a thing they did every year to go to the reservation. And it doesn't make. It just. I find it hard to believe. You know, the experiences my mother had as a child were just amazing. She was born in 1917, so we're talking 1920s. This was going on. Yeah. Yep. Sometimes I have to remind myself things I talk about. I'll forget. Oh, I did talk about that. Wow. Well, I'll try to say goodbye now. Take care. Keep looking up. Truth is stranger than fiction. Bye, everybody. Yeah. Everybody take care. Thank you so much for coming.